Okay, now I picked up this, I guess, outline, or it's not a syllabus really. It's an outline, sort of an intro to new writers, and I see that you begin by entertaining 12 fallacies.
Yeah.
Um,
There
I,
are at least 12.
at least 12. 12 fallacies about.
12 fallacies about what it means to write for film and television. 12 fallacies about what it means to be a screenwriter, basically, about the business
Okay.
and about the process.
Do you want to? I think it would be great in order to give this sort of a context. Let's go through those fallacies, and then we'll get into a little bit the meat and potatoes of the screenwriter's language,
Sure.
and try to define some of the terminology that's used in screenwriting, and then talk about best practices.
Sure. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Take it easy.
Hey, guy.
You're probably gonna have to tighten that one there.
This
yeah,
one?
so it doesn't go down anymore. There you go.
All right. There we go.
Okay, so everybody's heard this. I have a great script idea.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say about that is that's something that you hear from people who don't live in Los Angeles and New York, with no disrespect to people in the rest of the country and the rest of the world. It's not about geography. It's about this is where the profession is. This is where the business is. And so there's a
No, but hold on. I mean, I hear that anytime I go home for Thanksgiving. I have a great idea for it.
right, but and you go home to Maryland, right? It's not the way that people who do this for a living talk about their material. Because at the end of the day, okay, maybe you do have a great idea, but prove it. Everybody thinks they have a great idea. It's how you go about executing it and your level of conceptual clarity and all of that matters. And people who are pros at this, for the most part, will talk to you about their script on those levels. They'll never come up to you and say, "I have this great idea," right? If at least in a professional context. I mean, maybe as your friend, right? "Oh my God, man, I have this awesome idea."
Right.
But in a professional context, in a meeting, they'll never say that. I mean, they'll talk about what their story is, how it works, why it's exciting, how it's different, who are the characters, what do they do, how do they, what's the dynamic between them. Okay, those are the things that they'll talk about. They won't say, "I have a great script," because the proof is in the pudding. Okay, fine, prove it.
But you just mentioned a word that's going to keep coming up. When I was reading through this material and other material, it's something that continues to come up, and it's apparently very, very important to the screenwriter, and that is the idea of concept.
Sure.
Could you define that or talk about before we continue with the fallacies, because it's going to keep coming up.
Right.
So what is in the world of screenwriting? What is concept?
Sure. Well, it's a lot of things. The most important thing to, I think, give a little bit of context first to understand is that there's so much material out there. I mean, and not just today, but going back throughout history, that there's almost nothing, and I know this is sort of a cliche now, but it's really true that there almost is nothing that's a completely original idea. Everything in some way is derivative of something else, right? I mean, even something that was...
Derivative of something else.
Yeah.
What is that?
I mean, everything bears some similarity to something that came before it. I mean, even something, that as admirably unique as, say, Being John Malkovich is still playing on the whole switching bodies paradigm, So there's no such thing as a completely unique story. And because that's true, what I tell students all the time, it's not that you shouldn't try to write something that's completely unique, but there's no point in reinventing the wheel. What you want is a unique approach on the wheel. What's going to distinguish your project is not that you have come up with a plot that no one has ever seen before. It's that you have a unique approach to some aspect in your story, some aspect of the plot, of the characters, of the theme, of the way information is communicated. That would be like the craft of it. that we haven't seen before.
Okay,
And so to answer your question, that's sort of the context. To answer your question most directly, the concept in film is basically your approach, the way you think about approaching every major component that makes up your story. That's the first thing. So that means, who's your main character, right? And I don't mean that, oh, he drives a truck, he has a wife, you know, I don't mean that. I mean, who is he as a person? Why are we spending time with this guy? What are his, you know, what sort of flaws does he have, or what kind of character is he, right?
And this is still all under the heading of concept.
This is all under the heading of concept. I mean, basically, you can think of any story really as having 5 major components to it, and those would be your main character, your dynamic character, or sort of like the second lead.
Yeah.
Your your opponent, you know, whoever is in opposition to your main character.
Yeah.
Then you have the adventure that they go on, and then you have your genre, right? And the way you approach each of those 5 components, and I want to stress they're just the major components. I'm not saying that every script has just those components. I'm saying that if you, on the most general level,
Right.
those are the major components. How you approach each of them and how you approach how each of them interact with each other, that's your concept.
Okay.
All right. And in addition to that, and when I was talking about a second ago about how you have to have some sort of unique approach,
Yeah.
that's part of your concept too. And what I mean by that is, I just spoke about how there are these 5 components to every story, major components to every story, right? And how you approach each of them is your concept. For at least one of those approaches to one of those things, there has to be something new. There has to be something, a spin we haven't seen before, a way of combining them that we haven't seen before. You've heard me talk about that term as a conceit, which I didn't make up, by the way. It's not an original term with me. I got it from my studies at Writers Boot Camp. And what a conceit means simply is that at least one of your approaches to one of those components is something we haven't quite seen before.
Okay. We have some questions coming in, and
You mean people are actually listening to
people
this?
are actually.
Oh my
Then
God.
buckle up, guys, because we're going to be here for a while. There's a lot of material to cover, and I think it's all going to be really useful. And also, I'll repeat this later on in the webcast, but for you folks that are out there now, this is a sort of an interview / introduction / and I forgot the word. What was it that you called it? Seminar on screenwriting. And Kevin has volunteered to also help aspiring writers or established writers that need some help through the website. So more to come on that. But keep in mind that whatever questions aren't being answered this evening, Kevin has made himself available on the site to all of you.
Yeah, I mean, just really quickly, I'll just say that one of my ideas is to use tonight as a jumping off point for a seminar that would basically start with me teaching my class, which is already probably different from the way most people have studied before. Mm-hmm. So it's already got a feel of a seminar to it. And then take that and evolve it and extend it over time into more of a workshop seminar sort of format.
Cool. Well, awesome.
And yes, it will be free. There is a caveat. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm more interested in using using my TV to be able to disseminate that information than I am people paying for it. It's not important to me.
So cool. Let me get to a couple of questions. I think the best way is to whack. You okay?
That's the first time that's happened. It's going to happen at least 10 more times.
By the way, feel free to move the boom of the microphone out and up so you're more comfortable and you don't have to kind of lean over. I'm going to just take questions as they come in, and then we'll answer those questions, and then I'll hopefully be able to get back on track with what I had planned out. So we have a question